I run a full-time pet health and behavioural consultancy business, really. I started off 15 years ago, travelling the world. I actually did my study in rescue centres all over the world. And instead of just going and walking the dogs, I used to actually go and sort of just sit in the kennels and like study them. Just sit there all day with them and become a dog, if you like. And I started to learn their language and how they communicate to each other. And actually working in that rescue system, I learnt about the rescue system and the problems that they face. I didn't really know what direction I was going to take at that point. I was studying dog psychology. I knew I wanted to help dogs, and I had a calling to do this. But it was while I was sat in one of the rescue centres, I kind of thought, as I was watching one dog go out and be rehomed, another dog comes in. And then if this dog didn't get on with the family, it would come back and they would have an overcrowding situation, which would then put all of their resources under pressure, the staff, the funding. So I wanted to create a system whereby I could help people, one, to prevent their dogs from ever going into a home, and two, to help rehabilitate dogs that are out of the system so they don't end up coming back into the system, because that's obviously going to help the rescue system. And that's kind of really where my passion lies with it and with the direction that I've taken with it. Day-to-day job for me, I get all sorts of different clients come to me. They've usually been to see the dog trainer, the vet, the behaviourist. They've usually been to see all these kind of people taking their dog to dog training, and they've still got a problem that needs a solution. They haven't quite found the solution to either the health problem or the behavioural problem, and you know, they're still looking for solutions. So I think that's when people start to look outside of the conventional way of what they've been doing and start looking for more natural, sort of holistic ways, which I offer. I offer natural. I call myself a natural dog whisperer because I do everything naturally, without drugs, without force, without control, without all of those other methods that we've all seen, you know, back to the Barbara Woodhouse days and so forth. And I actually, I deal with clients. I mean, I'll give you a few examples of clients, maybe that maybe help. I will go and see, say, a family. They've got a family, the dog's bitten the little girl, severely damaged her face. I mean, something like that requires more than a dog trainer or even a vet at that point. Needs somebody who can go in and actually support that family through that process. And it's about educating them and helping them understand why their dog did this. You know, because once you understand a problem, you can start solving it. It's when you don't know where the problem's stemming from that it drives your brain into overdrive and you know, you can then, again, if things are misdiagnosed, you then go down the wrong path for treatment, and the problem still is escalating. And then the owner kind of feels, well, I'm doing everything that I'm being told, but it's not working, so it must be something I'm doing. And then the owner loses faith in themselves. And you know, all of the clients that I have all say, I know it's something I've done wrong. You know, and I just really try and help and educate. It's all about education for me, educating actual people on the canine species, what they're about, where they've come from, the journey they've been through, where they are today, and what their problems are in society today, and how we can find solutions for people and their pets. I do, again, natural health as well. I had a dog that was 21 years old, being diagnosed by the vet with nose cancer. The vet said he's too old to go on any drug therapy, nothing we can do. I suggest 2 weeks. I suggest you go home and make the best of the time with it. Now, the owner had just lived with this dog for 21 years. It was her best friend, you know, and she's just been told her best friend's going to die in 2 weeks. She found me on the internet and said, is there anything we can do? And we put him through a whole natural protocol, my natural program, and he went on to live another 3.5 years. And, you know, that's the kind of support that I want to give people. is to give them some hope that, while the animal still has breath in its lungs, there's still options, there's still alternatives, there's still things we can do. I think it's about getting education out there, because I'll give you another example. I was sat in the vet, this was quite a few years ago, and there was a girl sat next to me, and she was crying, and I said to her, "What's the matter?" And she said, "My dog's in there being put to sleep." And I said, "Oh, what was wrong with him?" And she said, "Dog aggression. He was biting everybody and everything." And I said, "Did you not think about going to see a dog psychologist?" And she said, "What's one of those?" And it kind of made me realise, people aren't even aware that this kind of help is out there and is available. They just immediately know that they have to go to the vet, or that's their first point of call. And the vet is only trained in the protocol that they've been trained in at vet school. So yeah, when something's outside of their knowledge, it'd be good to pass on to somebody like myself, where we've actually really studied dog psychology, human psychology, and the interaction between dogs. Again, communication. I learned what's called interspecies communication, which is I've learned the communication of the species of the dog, of the canine. So again, people out there, "Oh, I want to buy a new little dog." And they may go and buy a book, a dog training book, or they might do a little bit of research on the internet. But I say, if we, then they talk to the dog in the human language. And I'm like, if we met somebody from Spain and we didn't know Spanish, and we tried to have a conversation and they didn't know English, and, there would be problems. We would kind of guess what mood they're in. If he was like shouting at you, you'd think, well, he's angry. But it's, you wouldn't be able to solve a problem because you've not learned communication. So again, I think it's really important to teach people. This is what I do, is I teach my clients on how to learn the language of their dog, speak the language of their dog. So problems get solved much quicker because they can actually really correctly identify what their dog's saying. I'll give you an instance. An owner said to me, "I have no idea why my dog bit my little girl because his tail was wagging. I thought he was happy." Now again, it depends what position the tail is in. If it's up and wagging, it's a dominant. It's a I want to take action. I want to do something. I want to become aggressive, or I'm agitated, or I'm not sure about you. If a tail is wagging horizontally, it's pretty much, and the mouth's open, it's pretty much, I'm really happy to see you. And if the tail's tucked down, again, a lot of people don't know this, it's fear. And when a dog is in fear, it's more likely to bite. So just teaching people the basics in being able to read these signals can prevent so many problems from happening, because if they spot their dog is about to act aggressively, they can do something about to stop it, but generally they miss the signals that the dog gives them, and it goes in for attack, and then they go, "I wasn't doing anything," or "My child wasn't really doing anything," and yet, the dog's given so much communication already that it's going to go in for a bite or attack. So again, it's helping people with that kind of education, it's just to see, learn the language of the dog. You can prevent problems. When problems come up, you can sort them out quite quickly.
Cool. Now, obviously, with PDSA, we are thinking about pets in general, because you know that they do dogs, cats, what they call small furries. And obviously, you talked about companionship being really important. In your work, what kind of different roles do you see animals playing in a family? People's reasons for having them.
People's reasons for having them. I think if we look at where we are today, because everything is so expensive, just living is expensive. Both parties have to go out to work now to bring an income in. It's not like stay at home these days. So more and more people are not having children, but they want that something to look after. They want that something to nurture, to create as a family. So that's, I think, one reason why they'll get a pet. Is almost, even young couples, I think, get a pet for children. It's almost like, let's see how we're going to get on with the decision making over this pet before we have children, you know. So I think that's kind of one thought. I think for companionship, for, again, like myself, I live on my own. Having a pet in the house gives me a reason to get up in the morning, gives me a reason to go out for a walk, gives me a reason to earn some money to buy some food for somebody. It brings up that nurturing in you. So yes, again, with more and more people living on their own, I think that's a big reason is for companionship. You obviously still get your dogs that are brought in for guarding purposes on farms, security places, you know, so at police work. They're not really kind of pets, but farm dogs can be, but you know, that's their purpose. Again, working dogs, gun dogs, they're kind of treated as pets, but they're working dogs. I think, again, for old people, or just generally most people, they feel, especially a dog, is a good burglar deterrent. It's for security reasons. I think it's that whole emotional bonding, though, that you get with an animal, because human beings still have a lot to learn, I think, about unconditional love. We put conditions on everything. So an animal, I think, can come into our lives to teach us many, many things about ourselves, how we handle situations, how we deal with our emotions. Because I often say the dog or the cat, if we're talking about the domesticated pet, they often mirror what's actually going on very deep within us. I'll give you an example of that. I had a client who called me in, the dog was chewing up all the wall, just this one corner of the wall, eating it, literally eating away at it. And I said to this person, I said, your dog is trying to communicate to you that there's an issue within you, a big issue, that is eating away at you. I said, when you deal with that issue, your dog will stop chewing the wall. So I think, you know, again, people are starting to learn how to deal with their own emotions. You know, I get called in with people and they admit to, I've smacked the dog and I feel really guilty about it, you know. And again, I think that's a lesson that the animal brings in, is to help people realise they've perhaps got some anger issues that they need to go and deal with. So I think it's a very two-way relationship. The animal comes in, we help, we give, we nurture them, but I think they mirror everything back to us and help us deal with a lot of our emotional and psychological problems. Again, if we're talking about psychological problems, there's so much evidence and research. You know, when a cat comes and sits on you and purrs on you, it's a very relaxing. Health benefits of having a pet. They say people are more active, getting out for exercise, they're relaxing more, de-stressing more. So again, I think for health implications, mental implications, having a pet is a really good thing.
We've done some research already using online research panels, so we were able to ask the UK population what they think of various things, and we asked them, you know, why did you buy your first pet? And the companionship thing came through. There was a lot of I grew up with animals, so it was the natural thing to do. Another couple of interesting things for us that came up were, my children were pestering, and I just gave in. That's one thing. That's a kind of
That's a huge
negative thing. But then a more positive thing was, I thought it would be a good idea for my kids to have something that they had to look after. Do you see a lot of that in your work? Either, you know, kids pestering, or a kind of positive decision to give them something to look after?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important for children to work with animals. They're actually more open to what the animal is trying to communicate on a deeper level than us adults, because we've got much more stuff going on in our brains to worry about, think about, so we tend to not connect with our animals so much. Whereas children, when you see children playing with dogs and cats and stuff, they totally get in, they play games with them, they interact with them, they join in with things. So I think it's an incredibly important aspect for children to look after and learn to look after and learn the value, I think, as well of life and death. I think, you know, all us children perhaps lost a pet first before losing a parent or an adult or a family member or a friend. And it's, you know, it's an important lesson for children to realise or start to learn about that kind of thing. And learn how to deal with things when they go wrong as well.
And another question that we asked was, we said, do you think it's important, you know, when you're buying your first pet, to do a lot of research and be prepared for its arrival in your home? And everyone said yes, absolutely. But do you think people do that? Do you think that people really spend enough time understanding the implications of this dog or this cat or even this rabbit arriving as a part of their family?
I think they could do more on a general scale. I think they could do more, but I think it's about what sort of education is out there, because I think most people, generally responsible owners, will do a bit of research on the breed. They might buy a dog training book, they may ask their friends and family, they may ask the breeder lots of questions, but I generally, when I actually come to see clients, I go right back to day one, even before they've chosen this dog, and ask them, why did you choose this dog? And what preparation did you do? And what kind of questions did you ask the breeder when you went to pick up this dog? And no, they don't. I mean, if we were going to buy a second-hand car, you'd want to look under the bonnet, you'd want to know the service history, you'd ask all the right questions, make sure you're not buying a dodgy car that's going to cost you a fortune in service repairs. So I get so many people I just fell in love with the puppy and I just had to take him home. You know, so it's an emotional need, I think, in a lot of cases. And then, yeah, they you know, later on they realise they've picked up maybe a puppy mill dog that's come with problems. They haven't asked about the background. So again, I try and help people with the education that, you know, that even just providing a set of basic questions that we need to be asking every dog home, every breeder, or anybody that wants to rehome a dog. We need to know their full background, you know, as far as we can possibly go. Just the fact that they've got kennel club papers or something doesn't necessarily tell us the full story, you know. So I think a lot more research could be done. A lot more education is needed and research could be done, rather than just buying a dog and a dog training book or a book about its breed.
And do you think there's anyone or any organisation out there that's doing that kind of thing well right now?
Again, I think they're improving on it, definitely improving on it, from what I can see from the rescue centres, breeders. But there's still a lot of work to be done, I feel. Still a lot of work. You know, again, it's I think times are changing, the world is changing, dogs are changing, humans are changing, and we've got to adapt to those times. And I still think there's a very sort of old-fashioned protocol surrounding getting a pet at the moment, which, yes, with help of education from the right people, I think we could improve on things.
And what about looking after it? Because there's 2 points, isn't there? There's kind of, are you prepared enough for that pet to arrive in your home? And then, are you looking after it properly when there's the big dogs, there's the big kind of socialising, house training, there's that bit, and the kind of swimming pools of pee you seem to have to mop up. But then there's kind of ongoing, am I feeding it properly, am I exercising it properly, just all that stuff. Do you think there's anyone out there doing that well?
No, again, I don't know if there's a market for it though, because people want to have the education when they've got the dog, not before they've got the dog. I've tried it before where I've said, look, come and learn about your new puppy or your rescue dog before you get it, and people are just not interested. They want to get the dog, see what problems it's got, and then do it. But if they don't know what the education's like, as I say, they might get the dog home, the new puppy. It's suddenly chewing everything, because you say weeing everywhere. One member of the family generally doesn't want the dog, has been talked into it, like you said, the parents or the husband. It's like, oh, for a quiet life. And all of a sudden they have this little energy in their house that's destroying things or making their life hell when they go out for a nice, pleasurable walk. And all of a sudden the vet bills come in, the behaviourist bills come in, the pressure builds up, and people just go, this dog's got to go. And I think that's really where we've got to look at helping people and educating them. The great responsible owners, as I say, come and find people like myself, go to a dog trainer or a behaviourist, or go and say, right, we've got a problem here, we want to sort it. And they love the dog so much, it doesn't matter how much money, how much time it's cost. But there's still a big, large percentage of the population who just say, I just want a cute puppy, I just want a dog, and don't even think about how big the breed's going to grow, what the breed needs, what the dog needs, and suddenly find it 2 years down the line, suddenly, that lower income bracket in society, I think, are the ones that need the help the most. And yet they're the ones that find it very difficult to afford my fees, the vet fees. And again, that is one of the biggest reasons that an animal will go into a home, is because their problems have become too costly to fix. And again, this is where I see if we can provide some education through books, training videos, free education to these people, a lot more dogs are going to end up not in the homes, not in the rescue centres, and they can keep their animals in their home. So, I think the work they do is really, really good.
So I'm going to tell you where our thinking is right now. You're exactly right. They do focus on helping people who are in receipt of certain benefits, but they're also charity, and that gives them a bit of an issue, in that the people who see them and use them don't necessarily have the free funds to
give to
money.
charity. Yeah.
So the people who give to them tend to be a lot older and tend to be in lower socioeconomic groups. And to survive, they've got to go younger, and they've got to find, quite frankly, posher people.
Yes.
So we thought, hang on, isn't it interesting? They've been useful to the people they're currently giving to them. If we look at the people we now want to give to them, younger, more upmarket, not able to use their services because they're not in receipt of benefits, how can we be as useful to those people as we are to those service users? And one of the ideas that we've got is to really turn them into the Wikipedia of pet health. They've got a ton of films and knowledge and information created by their vets, so it's not it's not like Mum's Net talking to your friend down the road about stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not designed to replace going to a vet or what you do, but giving people snippets of information about all those questions they should ask before they have a pet, all those questions they should ask when the pet is growing up. What do you think about that as an idea? And again, it doesn't matter if you hate it or love it. It's all.
I think if you could provide a broad spectrum of knowledge, not just coming from the veterinary field, but you included, because there are so many different opinions in the animal world, but I think it would be good to get a balanced view, so people could actually go, okay, I want the vet's advice on this, so I'm going to look up for that. I want something a bit more natural. I want a chiropractor, an animal chiropractor. I think if you offer the broad spectrum, if you do want to be a Wikipedia, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be a great resource for people to go to. And if they're going on to that, and you've got a donate button, lots of things saying, please give us money, money. That I think that's a brilliant idea.
Because what we want to do is bring together the kind of advice with the ask, if you like. Because currently they do a lot of asking without any reference to their knowledge. They talk a lot about the power of companionship, And we're not saying that's wrong, we're just saying, isn't it more interesting to be more useful? Let me just check all the other questions to ask you now.
I think the other question was where do most people go to for advice?
What do you think?
I think the first point of call is Google, generally. As they put the problem in, and then they will probably go to YouTube, be directed to a website or a YouTube video on how to. And then I think they'll probably they'll sit there for hours and they'll find so much conflicting information. One person says this, one person says, don't do that, do this, and they end up being a bit more confused. So, yeah, I think the next port of call is to look for a specific professional in that problem. And I think people are getting more and more aware that there is more help out there than just pet trainers. Who are going to teach the animal to do something for a bit of food. I mean, anybody can do that if you take the time with an animal. Most animals will do anything for food, but it's actually looking at how to create. I think, like I say, it's that important education to get there first, is how to actually fulfil your pet's needs correctly so it lives a long, healthy life with you, free of vet bills, free of behavioural bills, and you just enjoy your life with them. But yeah, where else would they go? I think friends and family. I think a lot of people ask their friends and family, what do you do? Or their friend will say, oh, you want to try this or you want to try that. So I think a lot is built into using their network around them. But yeah, I think the internet is the biggest place people go.
And we've spotted there's help and advice out there from Dogs Trust, from the Cat's Chum. A whole series of how to look after your puppy. What do you think about the PDSA particularly could make people choose that source of advice over or as well as the other ones?
I think I'll probably come back to giving them a really broad spectrum of specific areas that they want to go in, because, like I say, with the other places that you've been to, the other people that you're talking about, they're following a particular protocol, and they're offering particular ways and advice within that protocol. So I would look at the PDSA. I would suggest that if they could open up to looking at the whole spectrum, dog psychology, interspecies communication, pet diet and nutrition. Pet diet and nutrition is huge. Preliminary training before you get your animal. Come and get all the training first, then get your animal. You'll be sorted. Holistic therapies. People might want to know more about hydrotherapy, things like that. Animal chiropractic. People don't, if people have never heard that kind of thing. I just feel that if they can offer a real Wikipedia type where any particular problem that an animal possibly has, there is an answer, there is an article, something to direct them to some information about that, I think would help. As I say, I think the other ones are sort of very set within a structure or within their boundaries of what they need to be telling us.
Great. And finally, you probably see lots of people with pets who are misbehaving. They probably. What kind of effect does that have on the owner, given the fact that your job is about, you said right at the beginning, you can speak dog, and they can't, and I suppose it's the same as when a child is ill, you can't tell you what hurts or why it hurts. Do you think people find that particularly distressing because they can't, work out what's wrong?
Yeah, I mean, because people do form such a close relationship with a pet, and because that pet is there unconditionally for them, psychologically, that pet is there just to give love. I think people create a a deeper bond with their animals than most humans, because humans aren't there by your side 24 hours a day looking to help you in any way they possibly can, whereas animals just sort of come with that. So I think there's a deeper bond, and when there's an illness or there's a behavioural problem, it is the most stressful, upsetting time for the owner. It's incredibly stressful for them, because not only do they, it's the not knowing, it's the not understanding why their dog or their cat's behaving in a certain way. It's then the worry, so it's the frustration of not knowing. It's the worry of, what am I going to do about it? How much is this going to cost me to fix? Money always comes into a big, big play. You know, it's one of the biggest stress factors in our life. And is my dog going to die, or is my pet going to die because of a result of this? So there's a huge, huge amount of stress and worry, huge. And how I deal with that with people is I help them. The very first thing I do is I help them understand where the problem is stemming from, because that takes away the frustration. We can then find a solution, which then takes away the worry. We can then put a financial plan in place so people can, you know, whatever your budget is, let's work it out over a period of time, so you don't have to worry about that. And generally, yeah, I'm here to help save your pet's life from ever being euthanised or put into the rescue system, where who knows what's going to happen to it. I mean, it is... I get people all the time phone me up and say, I'm at my wit's end. If I can't find a solution, the dog has to go. And they are so dreadfully upset about having to make that decision, you know, and that's where I find the passion is actually being able to help people and just giving them the education and the understanding about where this problem's stemming from is the light bulb moment. They go, do you know what? Now I know what the problem is, actually what the problem is. I can do something about it. All right.
And just, sorry, I said that was the last thing, it's just as you were speaking, something popped into my head. How did you end up in those rescue centres, sitting in with the dogs? What brought you to that point? What made you want to work with them?
What made me do that? Well, okay. My very first dog, I was one of those children who begged my mother all my life. And I just kept going, no, can't have a dog, no, can't have a dog, no. At 15 years old, this little stray dog ran past me into the road, nearly got hit by a car. Car driver wound his window down, shouted some very abusive things at me and said, can't you keep your dog under control? And I said, it's not my dog. This little dog comes and sits at my feet and looks up at me, and we bond instantly, and he follows me home. And my mum's like, we can't keep the dog. And he was such a clever dog. He went and climbed on her lap and put his little nose under here and went to sleep, and she went, oh. And I was like, he's not going anywhere. Ended up keeping the dog. To cut a very long story short, the dog was, he was little Jack Russell. He was wonderful around the house, but outside, oh my God, he would go and attack German Shepherds, Rottweilers. He was the most aggressive little dog that I've ever known. And all I used to do was get pet owners shouting at me, keep your dog under control. And I'd go home in tears and I'd shout at him and say, why are you attacking dog? You know, because I didn't understand. Went to the vet said, roll a newspaper up, smack him on the nose. Went to the pet shop, he said, buy him a choke chain, yank him on that will soon sort him out, buy him a muzzle. I tried the advice of the professionals that I received, and it frustrated me and my dog even more, didn't solve the problem. And I did what most dog owners do. I started going out very early in the morning, very late at night, when there was no other dog owners around, so I could let my dog off. Let him off one night, it was about midnight. He ran off, got hit by a car, died in the vets the next day. I was only 16 and a half. It absolutely devastated me, turned my world upside down. I was so distressed. I just took all the blame upon myself. I thought if I was a better dog owner, if I knew what I was doing, this dog would still be alive today. I vowed never to get another dog again because the grief was too much, too painful. About 8 years later, I still have this passion for dogs. I just was born with it. And I saw an advert in a magazine that said, do you want to study dog psychology? And I was just like, it was my calling. I was just like that. So I paid the money, £500 I think it was at the time. Sent off, got the home study course, sat down, opened the manual, and it was saying, practice this on your dog and try this and do that. And I thought, I've got no dogs. So I thought, where can I get some dogs from? So I thought, the rescue centres. So I started volunteering as a dog walker down at the Dogs Trust, and just started sort of getting into doing that. And then the more I was sort of studying the course, the more I wanted to really get into the psychology and the understanding of these dogs. So I stopped walking them and I just used to go and sit in the kennels with them. And I used to get the strangest of looks. You know, people would walk past and like, why are you sat there? And I'd be sat there with all the poo and stuff on the floor. It didn't bother me. And I just was like, I want to become a dog. Because my inspiration was Monty Roberts, who's the famous horse whisperer. And as a boy, his father owned a horse ranch, and they'd get all these wild Mustangs in, and his father would tie them up, the horses, and beat them to break them. And then Monty, as a small child, thought there's got to be a better way than this. And he used to sneak out of his bedroom window at night and go and just lay in the field with the wild Mustangs, and he just studied their herd language. And he practiced and he developed this interspecies communication with his horses, and he found he could break wild horses in without having to tie them up or beat them. Very excitedly, he was about 16, 17 at the time, went and showed his father. His father took his belt off and beat Monty and said, don't ever go against my way. Now, Monty Roberts continued through his life doing his interspecies communication. He got called over by the Queen Mother, to deal with their horses. He's now going around the world teaching people how to communicate with horses in their language. So he was my inspiration. So after reading his book, I thought I need to go and sit in the field with the horses, but I went and sat in the kennels. And then my journey, I actually went travelling around America for 5 months, and I fell upon, wasn't part of my planned journey, but I fell upon Best Friends. Have a look at Best Friends in Utah. Group of 20 English people. Now here's an idea for you, because I read their book as well. They found 300 acres of Red Rock Canyon, no electricity, no water on this land, but it was up for sale. And they had a dream of building America's largest no-kill animal shelter. And they came back over here, they'd seen the land, they came back over here in this group of 20 people. They put an advert in the Times newspaper saying, heiress wanted. Found this land, we want to buy it. It had all these little old ladies donate their money to them. And they went and bought the land, and they built Best Friends from scratch. And it houses over like 800 dogs, 1,000 cats, they've got horses, birds, parrots, everything. So that was really my inspiration. I went and worked in there, volunteered in that place, and it changed. That was the moment that it changed my life, because these animals had things like their face blown off with shotguns, they'd been thrown out a high-rise story, they'd had acid poured over them. And because it was a no-kill shelter, they really looked at how they could rehabilitate these dogs, rather than just saying, oh my God, he's had his face shot off by a shotgun, we've got to kill him. You know, and that's where I think some of our shelters could look into a little bit more of what can we actually do. Because, you know, let's face it, if a human had their face shot off by a shotgun, we'd try and reconstruct the face. We wouldn't just say, oh, well, you've got to die now. I hadn't had a dog since Jake for 20 years, right? I'd done all my study and training, and I thought it was time I get another dog. And I wrote to all the dogs' homes in the country and said, I'm a dog psychologist, I want to help your worst case, the one that can't find a home, the one that's about to be euthanised, severely aggressive, whatever. I want to bring it out, rehabilitate it, foster it, move it on, because that's what I was going to get into. All right, that was the system. I thought, if I can get as many dogs as I can out these homes, rehabilitate them and find them good homes, then, and give them, you know, give the people the training as well. Anyway, Annie came along and I went down to the kennels. That's right, I got an email. I sent my email out. Within 10 minutes, I got a phone call from the Greyhound Trust, and they said, we've got this dog called Annie. And she turned out to be 5 minutes down the road. I mean, I'd written to all the dog homes in the country. She was definitely destined to come to me. I drove straight down there. they brought her out with this pink muzzle on, and she just took one look at me, and I opened the car door and she just said, "Get me out of here." Got in. And I remember taking her muzzle off, throwing it on the floor and saying to her, "You're never going to need that again. I'm here to look after you." And I think that probably was my happiest moment. And it took me about 11 months to rehabilitate her, and the Greyhound Trust said to me, are we going to find her another home yet? And I was like, oh, no, she's not ready yet. She's not ready yet. And they said, Nikki, you're going to adopt her, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. I knew by adopting her would mean that I couldn't get other dogs out, but I bonded with her, you know, and the incredible work. And to be honest, she's the one dog who's taught me so much, because it was time for me to practice everything I'd learned on a real dog, you know, and bring it out of the rescue system. She's not been to see a vet in 7 years. She's happy, healthy. She's coming up to 10 now. She's a testimonial to my work, but she helped me as much as I helped her. It was a two-way thing.